All right, are we ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm pleased to call to order the Agenda Review Workshop meeting for the Florida Virtual School Board of Trustees. The purpose of the workshop is to develop and discuss potential agenda items for the next quarterly meeting, which is going to be held on September 14th of 2021. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I welcome everyone in attendance and I appreciate all the hard work and all the materials provided, and especially the CEO, Dr. Luis Alves, and all the Florida Virtual School members who prepared the meeting. And as always, you've done a great job in getting all the materials to us. So with that, Mr. Moore, will you please call roll?
Yes, sir. Dr. John Wattrett.
Present.
Ms. Linda Ryder.
Sorry, present. Sorry.
Mr. Edward Paswally.
Present.
Mr. Robert Canarins.
Present.
Thank you, and thank you for all the board members being here so that we can always have a quorum with the four of us. Hopefully that will change sometime. So now I'd like to just go to some opening remarks. Madam Co-Chair, Ms. Ryder, any comments?
No, just good morning to everyone. And I want to do a special shout out to Mr. Bruce Moore, who was extremely patient with me yesterday when I had a slight brain freeze with this board docs, and he helped me and I got it to work. So I just want to do a shout out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anytime. Thank you.
Excellent. Good. Board member Canarins.
No, nothing special. Again, just reviewing the agenda and the attachments. Everything's well organized, and appreciate the cliff notes on the top. So all good to go.
Thank you. And board member Pizzulli.
Just good morning to everybody. Appreciate the hard work and preparation for this meeting. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And I know it's we're starting off the school year again, and you know, I think Florida Virtual School is going to be benefit from what's going on and continued COVID in support of providing quality education to our students. So now I'd like to turn it to Dr. Alves to lead today's meeting and presentation. I know we've got an extensive agenda here, and we need to go through it. So Dr. Alves, I'll turn it over to you to go through the agenda items.
Thank you, Dr. Wattrett. As you mentioned, today's workshops develop the agenda for September 14th board meeting, and I'm going to walk through our leadership team's proposed agenda items with you, and I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. And we'll have some guests come up and speak more specifically to some of the items. The first items are the typical items, the approval of the minutes. Those are going to be 2.1 and 2.2, the prior quarterly board meeting minutes and the agenda review workshop meeting minutes for today will be brought up at the next meeting. Public comments time will be given. And following the public comments, I'll present the CEO report, which is going to this time consist of student achievement information. We're going to be sharing our FSA results for our full-time program and our end of course performance for our flex program and our ACE performance, which is the first year that we've had our ACE, that's the Cambridge program's exam results, which we did really well on. After that, item 4.2 is going to be a foundation update. And Beth Bruner, the foundation manager, will present that at that time. Item 5 is going to be contracts. We have a lot of proposing them for consent agenda, a lot of contracts. Going to have 18 contract documents and 2 requests to increase budget authority for the board's consideration and approval. And Joanne Sarah should be pulled up here in a second so she can go over these with you at this time. And if you need to delve into any of them more deeply, we also have the subject matter experts on hand.
So just a general understanding here. So each of the lots 1 through 13, the I assume the RFP went out to, for example, in lot 1, there was 5 respondents, and then one was selected. Is that correct?
No, it went out to, good morning, everybody. This is Joanne Serra. Sorry for not introducing myself and jumping right in. The way this RFP was structured is it went out on the street for anybody to respond to. We had the 13 lots and we had respondents for each of the lots. Based upon the criteria the evaluation committee met for each lot to determine the best ranked vendors. So when you see here, lot 1, 5 vendors, we're actually recommending award to all 5 vendors. And how this contract works is when we have a course or some work, development work that we would reach out under that lot, we'd put out an RFQ. And any of the 5 awarded vendors can respond to that RFQ. It's called the secondary bid or an RFQ under this RFP. And then from there, we would award a statement of work based upon that. So this RFP is more of a qualification for vendors in each of the particular categories.
And then at what time are you selecting one of them? And is it, that's the part still. So you've got 5, you're going to put RFQs out, and then eventually one is going to be selected, correct?
For a particular work. So in other words, it may be one course or it may be a small lot of courses where we'll have specific requirements. We'll put out a request for quote to the awarded vendors in that lot. The vendors would respond to that quote and the curriculum development team would select which vendor best meets their requirements based upon that response. And we would move forward with a statement of work for that vendor. So, you know, any one of these vendors can earn work throughout the term of the agreement.
So as I look at the bottom, I'm assuming that you had 12 vendors submit for the 13 lots. Is that correct? And that's what these agreements are at the bottom, the matrix, Conji, matrix, whatever.
Correct. I believe there were 13 total respondents and we're recommending award to 12.
12. Okay, so and that's the ones that will be awarded on those documents.
And we have 2 lots that we're going to resolicit for because the evaluation committee didn't feel like the responses or the requirements were significant and appropriate enough to award based upon. So lots 2 and 3 will resubmit. The rest of the lots we're recommending award.
Okay, so 2 and 3, yeah, no award. Okay.
So what this process allows us with these lots is to obviously meet the requirements of law and also gives our curriculum team flexibility because they're building a bunch of different courses concurrently so that they can go out to whichever vendor is needed in order to meet whatever the specific need is that they need.
So in practice, all 12 will get work from us, or could be that it's only 6 out of the 12 will get work.
It's possible all 12 or it's possible only 6, just like you stated. It really depends on what work we have in the particular categories and how they respond to our requests for quotes. We sometimes have seen we've had a similar award that is expiring this month for these types of services. And sometimes there are certain vendors who really, when they submit a response to the RFQ, their pricing is more consistently lower. They have more detailed responses that meet our requirements. So they tend to possibly get awarded more. But the opportunity is there for any of the awarded vendors in the lots to get work throughout the term of the agreement.
And then I noticed all term of the agreement is 5 years. Is that?
It's 5 years, but we're not, unless they're awarded work under the direct quote, there's no expenditure there. But yes, it's a 5-year agreement. We maintain the right to terminate any of the agreements at any time.
And as when the statement of work is contracted out to the individual, is that when they secure the pricing, or is this pricing secured for 5 years regardless?
We negotiate each individual RFQ. So they've submitted rate cards with their RFP response. Their rates that they propose on the direct quotes cannot exceed those rates. We typically can negotiate them a little bit lower on the individual quotes that we request throughout the term of the agreement. But yes, we do expect their rates that they've submitted for to not exceed them. That's
All right. I appreciate the information. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Well,
You started me.
go ahead.
While you're developing any of these courses and curriculum, you can have more than one of these vendors working at the same time. Is that right? Or in different parts of the curriculum development?
absolutely. That's a great question. So let's take, for example, and this is just an example, we have M&R Consulting Corp, where you can see that they've been awarded in multiple categories. We could have one vendor that's awarded for course design and development work, say Focus. We could have M&R consultants that are working on web design for that course, a different vendor that's awarded for proofreading that course. So multiple vendors can be awarded. We can be developing maybe 3 different subgroups of courses at once and have 1, 2, or 3 vendors working on that.
And if they're not needed for a certain course development, but you still have a contract with them, then they just sit in the corner and wait till you need them again, but you don't have to pay them anything, right?
Exactly. They are only paid on awarded statements of work. So we don't pay anything unless we, what I'll call a sub-award, if we give them award based upon a direct or an RFQ process under this. So, as I mentioned, we've done something similar in the past where those contracts are expiring. And there are vendors who got very little to no use under the old agreement just because they weren't competitive or responsive to our quote requests.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I think Mr. Cornarins had a question, but his
Yeah.
connection glitched.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Can you give us just a little bit on the selection committee to get onto the short list? What the criteria, like price is so many points, previous experience, financial stability, and then also on the final selection, is it the same qualification to get the purchase order? And who's on the selection committee? Can you give us a little bit of that details?
Sure. If I could, I can send you the full evaluation criteria right from the RFP that the committee determined to meet their criteria for this recommended award. And just as you said, there's a percentage that's based upon, samples submitted, financial stability, experience, a lot of different factors depending on the lot, but I'll be happy to send that along to you. There were different evaluation committees for each lot. That way we had a cross selection from the organization evaluating and not just the same 3 people or 4 people for every lot. We always had subject matter experts as well as people from other parts of the organization to make sure the process is fair. When it comes to the secondary award, where we actually may award a statement of work, and that's where, of course, our expenditure comes in, it will really depend on the size of the procurement or the estimated project budget to determine the process. We have the ability to go direct to the first ranked vendor for certain awards, or we have the ability to quote with all awarded vendors. If we're quoting with all awarded vendors, we can evaluate those quotes based upon, we've already determined that they have the experience, so we don't need to reevaluate their experience, but we can look at the pricing that they're submitting for the project, the resources that they're specifically committing for the project, the samples for the project that they submit, depending on the type of work it is. We ask them for samples, and then they'll make a recommendation for award on that quote. Does that answer your question?
That's good. Yeah, that's perfect. Exactly what I was looking for. What percentage would you say goes just to the top ranked one versus, is it probably around a dollar size, right? So if it's a smaller amount, you might just go to the top one. If it's larger, you go to maybe the whole group. Is that what you do?
Yeah, under the previous matrix, for the most part, we would quote it under all of the vendors just for fairness and because we do try to get other vendors in the mix. how often it's been awarded to the top ranked vendor historically on the previous matrix. I'd have to go back and get those statistics. I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry, but I can get you that information and
okay.
follow up after the
Yeah.
call.
Yeah, that's not necessary. I got the picture. Thank you.
Okay.
I like it. I think you're doing great.
Yeah, this tool really just gives us the flexibility to be fast. Some of our course development projects have pretty large budgets. If we had to go to bid, I'm sure, as you know, the bid process can be very long on each course development, and it would take us a long time to get our courses meeting the statutory requirement.
No, I like it.
Thank you. If there are no other questions related to that item, does anybody have any more questions? Okay, Joanne, if you can just go ahead and go on to the next ones.
Sure. The next item we have is our Print and Promotional Services Award. This is also an RFP. The Print and Promotional had 2 lots, one that was for our printed items, business card, brochures, marketing materials. The second lot was for promotional items, giveaways that our global team may use, things of that nature, bags, promotional products. We recommend awarding lot 1 to Sandy Alexander for print services and Suncoast for lot 2 for the promotional. Both of these vendors, oh, go ahead.
Now, were these contracts up for review? Is that why we're doing it, or is these brand new lots that we're looking at? So we obviously had print and materials before that. So this was
yes.
a new contract.
The old contracts were expiring, so we put out a new bid to award new contracts. We really didn't get too many responses, and the awarded vendors, or the vendors that we're recommending you approve the award to, are the incumbent vendors for these lots.
Okay. So. Okay.
Any other questions on print and promotional?
And that's, I mean, I noticed that the 400,000 number on there not to exceed, that's just is that a reasonable number, or is it something that we would probably come back to later and review if we need more?
If we need more, we would certainly bring it back to the board. I feel like that's a conservative estimate and we shouldn't need to go back to you. You know, but we do have some projects on the horizon that could make that a pretty realistic number.
Okay, good.
Okay, the next item we have is an authorization of annual expenditures for our Google Voice services. Google Voice started off mainly as an instructional use product for our team to have communications with students and their families. It allows them to have a private number and not give out their private home or cell phone number. So we've had an increase in teachers. We've expanded the service to certain staff members for that reason. So we're requesting an increase in the annual expenditure. Google does not do contracts. However, they have provided us a discounted rate of $8 per user per month. We only pay for the number of active users each month.
On this one, I mean, and I'm comfortable with the Google Voice using it. We use Teams, Microsoft Teams equivalent of that for similar reasons, so that we don't have to give out personal phone numbers and things like that. Was other vendors considered, or was this just we've used Google Voice before?
Well, the history with this is Google Voice used to be a free service. We had many teachers sign up under their free service with that phone number that they were utilizing with their students. Then they transitioned to a pay service. Because we had so many staff already using the service and locked in with those phone numbers, it would have been a bigger change at this point. We did compare prices and we felt that the Google Voice price was reasonable or lower than anything else on the market that we could locate at the time.
They also provide some services that help us maintain sunshine law requirements in terms of archiving up all of the text, for instance, voicemail, et cetera.
Yeah, good.
Gotta watch
Go
those
ahead.
free, you gotta watch those free services. They get you sooner or later, right?
Yeah.
Always, always. Any other questions on Google Voice before we move on? Okay. The next item is an amendment to Northwest Regional Data Center. You had seen this contract last November when we asked for an increase in spend authority to align with our IT security strategy utilizing SecureWorks. This amendment is to have our underlying agreement with Northwest Regional Data Center expire coterminous with our 3-year plan that we had presented to you. In addition, there's a small increase, an annual increase on the fiscal impact we had presented last November due to an increase in the number of licenses and a few minor tweaks in the services that we were getting. So our new 3-year annual spend, and we are just starting year 2, or we will be just starting year 2, November 1st, is $4,444,591.
Yeah, this is a considerable, but it's a required part, so I've got no real comments on it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Okay, finally, I am going to have 3 late additions to the board agenda I wanted to review. My apologies that you haven't gotten advance notice on this, and we'll be certain to make sure you get data before the next board meeting in case you do have any questions. The first agreement that you haven't seen yet that I would like to add to the agenda is co-location master services agreement. This is the co-location that houses our servers here in Orlando. We have 2 sites, one in Maryland, one in Orlando. We have a new contract where we're going direct to the co-location. We had previously contracted through a third party. By contracting direct with the co-location facility itself, we'll be saving approximately 30% on the monthly rental lease. We're also charged our power usage. They don't mark up the power, so that's just a metered consumption rate that's charged back to us. Any questions? Okay.
None of this can go cloud-based rather than have the storage.
I think you all.
What was the question?
None of
Sorry,
it
I
could
didn't
go.
hear the question clearly.
Dr.
Oh,
Algate,
yeah.
he asked if any of this could be cloud-based versus the physical co-location.
Well, this is essentially our cloud, and we are prepared to go into the cloud that everybody knows as, Azure or Amazon. And when needed, we'll be doing that. But this is much cheaper than paying the services for cloud if it's not, not needed. And this we have direct access to. It's here locally. I actually visited there with Sam and Phil Bertolo, our folks in IT, so that we can actually physically go there. It's an excellent facility. It's hurricane proof. It's nuclear war proof almost. It's very secure and very impressive, quite frankly. I mean, it has its own water source and everything. So yes, it's less expensive than going into the well-known cloud, and it is our own personal cloud. And if we expand to the point that we need all that additional space and we pay for it, that we'll have to pay for, we're ready to do that if needed.
Okay.
And I do want to mention one other thing in Joanne's defense. Joanne tries very hard to get these before, and since we only have quarterly meetings, she tries to get everything up before the quarterly meetings for all of the board members to be able to have all the information. However, sometimes we're at the the whim of the people that we're working with in terms of getting the information in time. So this one and the other one, we have a lot of the information, but there's still some fine-tooth detail that has to be completed with them.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Algate. Any other questions on the co-location master services? And again, I understand that you haven't gotten this information ahead of time to digest and chew on. So
yeah, feel free to reach out after you've gone through it if you need any more information on it.
Okay.
Okay, the next late addition is request for approval to piggyback off of the NASPO value point for cloud services. This is the Florida Department of Management Services alternate contract source. Statute says that if we can utilize and leverage the pricing and state term contracts of the Florida DMS, that we should do that. Specifically, I'm asking right now for not to exceed of 2 million per fiscal year. The only confirmed purchase I know of right now is for renewal of our ServiceNow licenses. ServiceNow is our help desk ticket platform that we use for custom applications, help tickets, things of that nature that we'd be purchasing through Carasoft under this agreement. Again, the additional spend, however, is really to cover us for other services. As we look to expand and improve IT, there's a lot on this contract that we could leverage.
So this is mostly IT related in terms of service tickets and things like that.
The ServiceNow piece of it, yes, would be mostly IT related. We've developed some custom applications in ServiceNow for my team, for legal, where you can submit requests and it tracks the response, things like that. The piggyback on NASPO value point for cloud services, they have licenses both in the software as a service arena and the infrastructure as a service arena, and the platform as a service arena. So it gives us opportunity where if we had an initiative that needed a faster turnaround, we could leverage this competitively sourced contract.
Okay. And I'll look at it once we get it. Interesting.
Certainly. Any other questions? Okay, and finally, I'm going to have one additional board item where I'll be requesting authority to increase spend on existing contracts due to the increase in enrollments, our customers, and expansion of support services. Examples of items under this agenda will be our digital textbooks that coincide with our student enrollments, course licensing fees, some of the support services, for example, our e-therapy services that provides online therapy to students. We see, although enrollments haven't increased significantly in that area from last year, the number of students requiring those services has gone up quite a bit. So we're looking for, again, expanded spend authority on existing contracts. And I'll get that information to you by the end of this week.
Okay.
And that's all I have. It's a big list, so I appreciate your
Thank
time
you.
and listening. As always, you can reach me through Dr. Algaze to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. At section 5.7 or item 5.7, we have the performance pay plan for general counsel proposed. We'll present and request approval of an authorization to execute the performance pay plan, which is titled Addendum Number 1 to the General Counsel's amended employment contract. The performance pay plan was developed in consultation with outside legal counsel, Mr. Leonard Dietzen of the law firm of Rumberg, Kirk, and Caldwell. And those were sent to you and are also attached.
Okay.
I got a couple questions on that. Would it be prudent to include the original employment contract since this is just an addendum to it? I'm not sure if that's like confidential or not. Or
No, that was actually on the other board item when it was originally approved. So there's no problem putting in there. Actually makes good sense.
Yes.
We'll go ahead and do that.
And then, I really like the, you have 10 goals there, specific, smart goals, right? So 8 out of 10 is required. How much, I mean, there's a lot of measuring in those 10 goals. Is that information going to be readily available on a quarterly basis, or is it going to take somebody a lot of time to see if those goals are met?
That's a fantastic question, Mr. Ramirez. It's actually something we bantied back and forth to make sure that we were able to get this on a quarterly basis. We do have that prior ServiceNow platform that we were discussing the contract for. Does have a way of tracking all that information live and in real time so we can access it any day, any moment, any minute that it's needed. So yes, we'll be able to do that quarterly.
Is there a provision for adjusting the goals and the percentages based on what you see as the CEO? Because a lot of times human nature is to go to where your most incentives are. Not that our great David wouldn't do that, but it's human nature. So, if two of the top goals for you aren't met, and he makes it anyway because it's 8 out of 10. What's in there that give you the ability to adjust the goals to meet, changing times of the organization? In that, I'd like to see something where you would come back to us or whatever to be able to adjust them. I think they're from what I see, good goals, and I'm sure well thought out. But I think
correct. Yeah, we did go through those at length to try to make sure that they were fair and not necessarily fairly reflective of the job of the general counsel and what he should be accomplishing well. And in terms of your specific question, is there something specifically in there to adjust those? I don't think there are. David, is that something that can be added to this contract, or is it just a matter of bringing a new addendum to the board to redo?
Yes, door B. Okay, so this is an addendum, and it would run simultaneously with the contract. That's why it also makes sense to make this appended to the contract for purposes of the agenda, for sure. And I'll tell you, we're really proud. First of all, you had much better legal counsel. I, representing myself, had a fool for a client. These things are the result of a pretty big lift, okay, and creating from the ground up, using ServiceNow, a KPI automated collection system where you can slice, dice, get numbers, and yes or no answers to these KPIs any day of the week. That was important to us. Now, that said, the system itself, having just been developed over the course of many months with the help of a lot of people across the organization, I expect to improve upon them throughout my time here and to expand upon them. And I am certainly open to coming to the table and improving upon and making more genuine, more efficient, effective measures of KPI. And that's something that we're doing across the spectrum. I think that you all know.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I noticed, speaking on the legal things going on, how you're very efficient in using outside counsel, but how do you measure that is one of those things. So that's where I think Dr. Algaze is going to have to, maybe that's something down the road, but I don't know how, you measure it, it's there, but it's a tough thing to measure. But I think you did a good job here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And
Dr. Algaze, can I make a comment on that? I think that Board Member Caneras is talking about providing you maybe with flexibility to come back to the board with the recommendation, or at least within the amendment, some flexibility to come to the board, even if general counsel hasn't met all of the requirements, at least an explanation as to why, and have the ability to come to us and ask us to provide general counsel with some latitude in meeting his goals at the end of a certain time period. So I do think ultimately you as a supervisor should be able to come to the board and ask us to proceed under the agreement by giving him a performance bonus based upon your recommendation.
Thank you. Well said, Ed.
Yeah, I concur with that.
Okay. I will take that
As
back
opposed to Dr. A, as opposed
counsel.
to having the hard hard kind of metrics that this amendment talks about.
I understand. I'm
have
going to
some-
get back with
some
outside
latitude.
counsel to
Right.
to see if we can do that and get that.
Just a
before
little
you.
latitude given to you to offer that up to the board.
Got it. All right. No other questions about this item. The next section of proposed consent items deal with the annual reports and forms. We'll ask the board's consideration and approval of 3 new candidates for the FLVS Foundation Board of Directors and 6 district reports and forms. And Mike Miller will be reviewing the foundation board item. Mike?
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Sorry, I've been bouncing in and out. Or do we have the next board? Okay, we have it up right now. Actually, I was going to ask Beth if she would please review this. I know that she's been working with these 3 gentlemen, or excuse me, the 1 gentleman and the 2 gentlemen, or 1 gentleman and 2 ladies. Sorry about that. And so Beth, if you would like to quickly give them a summary of who they are and what's happening, I'd appreciate that.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity. We've searched throughout the state for some really good qualified candidates. Dr. Bill Colgate hails from Manatee County, Sarasota, and I think Dr. Algaze had a chance to meet him at our last board member meeting. Delaney Edwards, also a up and coming great advocacy of virtual learning, having attended virtual high school in Broward County. And Linda McKenzie is here in Orlando, and she's a former vice president of Fifth Third Bank and has served on other areas in banking, and is also the chaplain for Central Florida Regional Hospital here in Orlando, Sanford. And if you have any questions on any of these individuals, feel free to ask.
So in full disclosure, I brought this up. I recommended Delaney Edwards. It's my brother-in-law's daughter. Just because she is up and coming, very smart, and David had it cleared as no conflict. But I guess my question is, when we come to vote on that, do I have to abstain from this vote, being that it's kind of a relative, I guess?
So board member Canarins, I thank you for asking that. And as you'll recall, with our conferral and our written guidance from the Commission on Ethics, you will not have to abstain, and that's a good thing, because we have but 4 members to vote on all things. So I would encourage you to go forward and participate in the vote.
Okay, thank you.
By adding these 3 members, what's the total team in the foundation now? How many board members do you have?
We currently have 5 members, so this would increase it to 8.
And
is there
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, board member Watcher, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what size of board are we trying to grow to?
It's the same question I was going to have her elucidate on.
Yes. My personal preference optimally would be 11.
Okay. All right.
Do you think that's too big, though? That sounds like a large board.
Looking at some of the association and foundation aspects for board level participation, especially like our board, the foundation board, 11's, an optimal number to have. More than 11 is not great, but I think 11 is a good figure to work with.
Generally on foundation boards, they try to go with a larger number than we would normally have, say, for our board or other of those types of boards with educational institutions, because they have the fundraising mindset. And generally when they have more board members, they have more connections to help bring in people to do some fundraising.
That's what I was going to say, Member Pasquale, that their action item is to raise money. so if you have more people making that action, then we hopefully will have a more successful foundation. But
So then the right people is best, regardless of the number.
Right. Excellent point.
Considering we have to get 5, we have to get a 5th or 6th person on our board. So we might have quorum if one of us misses the, but okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm fine with that. As long as we're filling it with the right people, and I don't, I'd rather not us shoot for 11. I'd rather us shoot for the right people as opposed to just filling seats.
Agree.
Agree.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, everybody.
All right, so Gina Tavine is going to be reviewing proposed agenda item 6.2, uniform assessment calendar for full-time schools, and 6.3, the student progression plan. He's up. Give her a second to get processed through the Zoom world. Morning, Gina.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, I'm reshuffling my screen here, Dr. Algaze. Good morning, Dr. Algaze and members of the board. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you on our uniform assessment calendar. Florida Statute 1008.22 requires each school district to complete and publish the uniform assessment calendar by October 1st of each school year, beginning with the 2016-17 school year. More specifically, each school district is required to complete the calendar with the district required assessment information and the testing minute totals. The calendar must be published on the school district website and in the FLVS student handbook once approved by the school board. A link to the calendar from the website is to be provided to the Florida Department of Education by October 1st, 2021. The total percentage of time that districts cannot exceed for testing is 5%. FLVS full-time is well under the 5% threshold. Last year's calendar, 2020-2021, was modified in the middle of the school year by the Florida Department of Education to allow for extensions to the testing windows for state testing due to COVID requirements. The need was to have fewer students allowed in the testing room, which required more testing dates. That could certainly happen this year if the DOE chooses to lengthen the testing windows. And we will go back in and modify the uniform calendar if needed. We did add an asterisk to the calendar so parents would know that the calendar could be modified by the Florida Department of Education during the 2021-2022 school year. Thank you. Dr. Algaze?
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about that item?
No.
All right. Gina, if you could continue with the student progression plan.
Okay.
Sure.
Let me pull that one up.
Yeah.
So related to the student pupil progression plan, the Florida Statute 1008.25 requires each district school board to establish a comprehensive plan for student progression, which must provide for a student's progression from one grade to another based on the student's mastery of standards. The student pupil progression plan has remained consistent in language with edits made each year to ensure clarity and compliance with changes in FDOE rule. This year, edits were made to the following areas, such as proof of residency. There were updates to the proof of residency requirement language that were made for homeschool and private school students enrolled in FLVS Flex courses. It is now very similar to the process a student would follow in our full-time school or in any other Florida traditional school district. There was inclusion of language reflecting new curriculum required in statute. School districts are now required to include CPR training, basic first aid, explanation of how to vote using ballots, digital resume creation, and exploration of career pathways using the state career planning resources. The Florida Department of Education will continue to provide guidance to school districts on the implementation of the required curriculum. We did also include additional language to incorporate the ACE courses that are now offered at Florida Virtual School. We also included language updated on truancy. So language change is to provide clarity on what it means to be truant in a virtual setting. Due to the unique online educational environment of Florida Virtual School full-time, 15 unexcused absences may be equivalent to 15 or more school days in which the student has not completed any work or has not responded to communication attempts made by the designated teacher, a designated school administrator, and or social worker, and is not making adequate academic progress. Additionally, new language on the 30% calculation of the EOC scores and course grades were added. EOC results are required to be 30% of a student's final grade. The conversion chart for incorporating these results into the student's final grade has been modified. Additionally, there were also minor revisions to definitions, word choices, and making sure URL links were working correctly, etc. Thank you, Dr. Algaze.
Thank you. Any questions about that item? All right, thank you, Gina.
Thank
Robin
you.
Winder will be reviewing with you our next 2 agenda items, 6.4, the exceptional student education policies and procedures, and 6.5, school improvement plans. I see Robin's already ready to go.
Morning, board members. This morning, I'm going to present the ESE student policies and procedures. In order for a school district to be eligible to receive state and federal funding for specifically designed instruction and related services for exceptional services, we must develop a written statement of policies and procedures for providing an appropriate program of specifically designed instructions and related services for these students. We must submit this to the Bureau of Education and Student Services for approval, and we must report to the Florida DOE the number of students in the district receiving instruction for each program. In addition, to note about this specific item is that it is valid for 3 years. So what you're seeing is 2020/2021 through 2022/2023. We do update it each year to comply with any legislation or any updates approved by the DOE. You have here at the full document, the revisions that were added this time are pretty minor. We did some DOE, we followed some DOE guidance on the restraining of students, which in our unique environment, we really don't have the opportunity, thank goodness for that. So we just added, though, the DOE's guidance to that. We also updated annually to reflect the student academic and behavior monitoring tools, problem-solving processes, and implementation of interventions that are in place at each of the FLVS full-time schools. The other 3 were very minor updates based on DOE guidance.
So really, this is just a living document that has to be updated every 3 years or every year and valid for the.
And sometimes during the course of the year too.
During the year, right? We may
So
need to make
if it's being, it's a 3-year document, but it's being amended every year. Is it a rolling 3-year document? Or
did you say, is it a rolling 3-year document?
yeah. So if you make an adjustment on year 2, does that valid for move the document to another 3 years?
No, that's a great question. It doesn't. The actual body of the document and the spirit behind it doesn't really ever change very much. It's a pretty solid plan for how we serve our students in ESE. Just generally little things that may come up. This year especially, it was because of the unique conditions we faced last year due to COVID and some of the things that were happening. The numbers that we're reporting this year, I thought you might be interested in, were almost exactly the same number of ESE students across the categories. And if you remember last year, that was 158% increase. And the service to these students designed from this plan and how we actually do these processes, I think is such a great story and such a great accomplishment of the ESE team that those numbers did not change in enrollments. You heard Joanne speak a little bit this morning about the therapy contract. We're having to increase that by a bit just for that very reason.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Is this for full-time and flex students, your number of ESE?
It's a good question, Ms. Ryder. The numbers I've just given you and this plan specifically applies to the full-time program.
Only to full-time. So have you noticed an enrollment of ESE students this year compared to last year? Most of your last year ESE students have stayed into virtual this year?
Into the full-time program.
Into the full-time program. So they haven't gone back to their home schools after this. That's very interesting that they found this. This was after they came in at COVID, but then they stayed.
Yeah, that huge increase we saw in the fall last year when we were all here together talking about it, probably just about to the day this past year. We really didn't know if they were going to stay, but they've stayed. Those numbers have not decreased. They've actually increased a little bit in certain areas.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And And that shows a lot actually for your program, that they didn't go back. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It does. They seem to feel that they're getting the services they need and that they're being successful
We're
in
better.
this environment.
Actually better, probably. Yeah, that's the way I think. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cornarens, you had a question?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Robin. If you can do the next item, please.
Absolutely. So,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I was thanking Nikki. I see her on
Oh.
the screen.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Nikki. Hey, Nikki. Yes, so this item is our school improvement plans for the 3 full-time schools. It identifies goals and action steps needed for evaluating specific levels of student performance, also indicates data-driven instructional measures intended to increase this performance. And the elementary and high school plans specifically were required to be submitted to the DOE because of achievement gaps in student with disabilities and Black students in our high school and student with disabilities in our elementary school. Upon approval, these plans will be finalized by each of the school's advisory council and submitted to the Florida Department of Education. Full-time elementary improved in all areas of the FSA except the learning aids of the bottom quartile in ELE. So what you will see in their plan is a very strong focus on that. Same for middle school, and high school had some science and social studies work that they need to do. Each of the plans develop goals that you can very easily identify, and then they talk about the steps that they will take in order to meet these goals. They're all the goals are addressing specific achievement gaps that we saw when we got these results back. And I do believe Dr. Algaze is going to talk about student achievement on the actual board meeting on September 14th.
Good.
Any questions about this item? All right. Thank you, Robin.
Mhm.
And next item is also Robin's. Actually, I
This
can
is
go
the
ahead
easy
and
one.
carry this. Thanks, Robin. 6.6 is our full-time school calendar, and I'm going to be asking for your approval of the revised 2021-22 full-time school calendar, proposing to add the recently established Juneteenth federal holiday to the calendar. And because June 19th falls on a Sunday next year, we propose to observe Juneteenth on June 20th, 2022.
Wait, what's the actual calendar year? When does school finish, or is it ongoing? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so yes, our full-time school finishes before that. Our flex school runs all year long.
Right.
So concurrently with the students, also the employees will have that day as a day off. And the next item is the employee calendar. As mentioned, a lot of it is tied to the student calendar. And proposed agenda item 6.7, we'll be asking for your approval of the revised 21-22 employee calendar, proposing to add the recently established Juneteenth federal holiday just mentioned to this calendar as well, and proposing once again June 20th as the observance date. Any questions about either of those 2 items? All right, then I have to introduce to you in person. I mentioned her to you in the past, our new CFO, Judith Marti. Judy comes to us with a wealth of experience and a very long tenure of experience. And she's already hit the ground running since she's gotten here quite a bit, and looking to see how we can improve in every area. And Judy's going to be presenting the next several items. Judy, you go ahead and take the mic.
Thank you very much, Dr. Algaze. I look forward, board members, to meeting you in person sometime soon.
Welcome on board.
Thank you. This is my 5th week, sir.
Good.
And I have indeed hit the ground running. Dr. Algaze has kept me very, very busy. Enjoying it immensely though, sir. Board item 7.1 is the 5th amendment to last year's budget. I might add 5th and final. At the June 22nd board meeting, the board accepted an adjustment to the budget for the advanced allocation of ESSER 2 funds in the amount of $1.3 million. The total award was $2.8 million. So this amendment acknowledges receipt of the additional $1.5 million in revenue. If there are no questions, I'll proceed through the chair.
Yep.
7.2 is the presentation of the 21-22 proposed, final budget for Florida Virtual School. As you review the documents that you've received, where you see some areas that have significant increases, the preponderance of those increases are due to the previously approved strategic initiative for the IT roadmap. Other expenditure increases are related to personnel, legislated cost increases, such as the increase cost to employers for Florida retirement for our employees, and costs related to legal compliance. Overall, the ending fund balance is projected to be 197 million. Again, we're in the middle of year-end closing right now, so that number may vary somewhat. That's our best estimate at this point.
Good.
Okay, and then finally, we have 7.3, the teacher salary increase allocation. This is an item that we're still working on in finance. We'll have it to the board in the next few days. We are requesting that the board approve the allocation and the plan to spend it as presented. As most of you know, House Bill 641 created the law in 2020 that required districts to work with these dollars to achieve a minimum salary for 10-month teachers who were eligible under the law of $47,500. We were able to achieve that last year. Since most of our teachers are 12-month teachers, the equity amount for those 12-month teachers is $57,000. Again, able to achieve that last year with the inclusion of general fund dollars that the board previously approved. The allocation for this year increases by 3.5 million. So last year's allocation was 6.2. This year's allocation is 9.6, additional 3.4 million, all of which must be used for those eligible teachers under the law. So we will be reviewing with the board how much of an increase that is for those teachers, and requesting that the board approve this item and authorize transmittal of the plan to the Department of Ed, and that plan is due October 1st.
Okay. So as just in general, some general comments, I mean, last year's budget was based, there was a few amendments that came in because of the larger number of students. More students were in Florida Virtual School because of COVID. As we planned out the 21-22 budget, there was some expectation that some students would go back to the regular brick and mortar, but understand, given what's happened, we've still had an increase, or we've retained some of those students, as we've just heard, and possibly increased. The budget that is set forward, is it meeting the expectations of the number of students that we have or expect to have this coming year, given some of the things that's happened with continued COVID impact that is ongoing?
That's a great question, Dr. Watchert. So the budget for this year was built on projected enrollment. And as you indicated, based on last year's enrollment, we expected higher enrollment than pre-COVID numbers. So we built in for that. Additionally, Dr. Algaze very smartly retained all teachers on staff, expecting that increase. We have needed every one of those teachers that are in the budget, so we're in good shape there. State statute requires that anytime the budget is amended to increase expenditures over the existing functions approved by the board, that we return to the board for approval for that. So my staff and I, once the budget is improved, we go into full-fledged monitoring role. And every single week, I actually meet with academic folk. We review FTE. The FTE reporting team reports to finance. I meet with them on a weekly basis. And if we see upticks, we will be immediately coming back to the board for additional authority.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.
Hi, welcome.
Thank
So
you.
happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to, this is great. Is your FTE calendar the same as the school district FTE calendars? Do you, like, they have the twice a year? Do you do the same?
So Board of Virtual gets partial payment based on projected numbers, but final payment back based on completions.
Okay, so it's different. It's a little different than the regular school district.
Actually, it's very different. And it's something I'm still working on getting used to. I did the other way for 22 years.
Right, because that's all in our heads always, October and February. So, yeah, okay, thank you. And
I'm going to get it out of my head, though.
yeah,
To clarify that point, Ms. Ryder, which is an excellent point, October and February were the seat count times of the surveys of the people, the kids in the seats. We don't
Right.
work on seat time, we work on completion. The kid actually has to complete the course or we do not get funding for that student. So we are
Right.
constantly monitoring that, what Judy mentioned about meeting with the instructional folks, constantly monitoring that on a weekly basis to see. And again, in Flex, it's rolling. So kids start any time of the year, finish any time of the year. So we're monitoring when they're completing so that we have a good handle on what to expect by the end of the year.
so it's more complicated this way than
Yes,
the
it is much more complicated.
yeah,
It is significantly more complicated, but we've got this.
yeah, oh yeah, I'm sure you do. Well, welcome again.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Judy, for that.
You're welcome.
Judith. The next item is a number of proposed FLVS board policies, policy revisions and repeals for first reading. We will request the board's authorization to publish the text and provide public notice of a hearing on these proposed policies, policy revisions and repeals. And David Dagetta will be reviewing these items with you. David?
So for 8.1, and much of this is said, of course, a lot of what we say is really for public consumption. I know that all of you know a bunch of the stuff that I'm going to run through. So we have continued to work upon, improve, and develop from the ground up in certain instances our board policies. And those for first reading, we have 21 items and 5 repeals. What we're seeking, as was mentioned by Dr. A, is authorization to publish the text and to set a public hearing for the board's consideration of adopting these proposed policies and repeals. Give you a real quick overview. 5 of the items are HR related, dealing with different types of leave, essentially updating, providing greater detail and definition, and catching up to where we really should have been just in the text of our policies, inciting to and building off of the governing law. More on that later. With respect to the remaining policies up for first reading, I'm thrilled that we've really gotten to the first phase of our student-centered policies. It's one of the things that had us scratching our heads collectively, that we saw little evidence of student-related policies in Board of Trustee policies and bylaws. That thankfully is changing. These 16 student-related items do in part codify and update what you would otherwise find right now in certain student handbooks, okay? But usually it's the other way around, and certainly the Office of General Counsel has sought to, operate in a policy outward manner. That is, establish your policy and then make corresponding changes, if any, are needed to the various handbooks. That goes not only to student handbooks and codes of conduct and so on and so forth, it also goes to employee handbooks. So we're well on our way here, and what a terrific team we have here to have so many substantive matters before you. Also, with respect to all of these policies, please keep in mind that we had hired a third-party vendor with expertise in school board policy development, whose contract comes with a warranty. That was very important for this organization because as a matter of the services delivered to us at a great cost savings, I might add, any changes made to the policies that are presented here that are quote unquote Neola policies, that's the name of the third party vendor, also come with a warranty that if changes are made over the course of the next 2 years, and if we want 3 or 4 years, they are automatically updated for the board's consideration. So we're really happy with that. Any questions with 8.1? Dr. A, may I proceed to 9.1?
Yes, sir. Just
Okay.
proceed as you see fit.
All right, very good. So with 9.1, you've seen these policies before. We've gone through the publication and the notice of hearing, and September 14, we will have a public hearing on these items. There are under 9.1, 6 wage and hour and leave policies. We will present and add to our agenda. The text is the same, so that had been long ago. And what we're hoping for is to set the hearing at the board's next quarterly meeting, which I'm hoping will be November, December, somewhere in that vicinity. So these basically consolidate and update current policies, and they also come, certain of them come with the Neola warranty, that third-party vendor warranty. And because these are up for adoption, and that makes this workshop part of the deliberative process for the purposes of the public to know what's going on for public consumption. So just to give a brief overview now, going into the meeting, is the changes to the Fair Labor Standards Act policy and leave associated with that. We tightened up definitions of exempt personnel, tightened up executive determination of authorizing overtime. Those were two of the more substantive changes and improvements to the FLSA policy. The salary and payroll deductions, same thing. With all of these, what we're looking to do is tighten things up, define terms, make it understandable for not only the public, but of course, personnel who are obligated to execute on these policies. So for salary and payroll definitions, we preserve but limit the amount of supplemental pay for out of scope work of our personnel. That is work that is clearly beyond the employment contract we travel under with these personnel. I'll give you an example. It's not unusual for school districts to have classroom teachers take on various administrative operations just simply out of need. That is where supplemental pay and the superintendent's authority in a school board is very typical. This too is reflective. Our changes here are very much reflective of those standard salary and payroll deductions provisions. For leaves of absence, this was, there's various types of leave, of course, required and permitted by both state and federal law and regulation. There are 9 types of CEO authorized leave is what I'll call it. They're listed out and defined, I think, very clearly in our proposed policy. And there are very defined limitations regarding amounts and what you need to do to make a request and who has authority to do what. Military leave had to be updated because of updates to USERRA, which I call the Soldiers and Sailors Act. It changes title over time. USERRA, I think, goes to the Armed Services Reemployment Act, but touches on other things dealing with the military. So we needed to tweak what was a very good military leave policy in the first place. And we clarified, pursuant to USERA, Soldiers and Sailors Act regulations and changes, the inactive duty provisions that employers must provide to members of service. The jury and witness duty leave really was catching law, and Chapter 112, just typical provisions that apply to all state agents and personnel. It clarified what amounts to temporary duty elsewhere. You know, if a FLVS personnel, as a matter of their official duties, needs to attend a hearing, needs to attend a deposition, they shouldn't be penalized for it. Okay, so it is considered temporary duty elsewhere. And we need to also clarify, and we preserved this from, I believe, the original, is that there's really no such thing as, personal leave related to, litigation and hearings that have nothing to do with FLVS, but might have something to do with a personal matter. Of course, those things are not, should not be subject to the public purse, or the public purse shouldn't be subject to it, I should say. And then with respect to bereavement leave, clarified, defined, caught up with provisions of 10-1266 of the Education Code, and the limits and definitions are very much consistent with and reflective of Section 10-1266. So that's what we've got, and we'll tee that up for hearing, we're hoping, and take it up on an omnibus motion. That's all I've got. Any questions on that?
All right, thank you, David.
You're welcome.
Next item, item 10, requesting the board establish the additional dates of its regular quarterly board meetings for the remainder of the 2021-22 fiscal year. We recommend the following meeting dates. There's an attachment there with those dates and the recommended workshop dates prior to. What we need the approval on is the actual meeting dates. I want to thank you all once again because unless all four of you are there, we don't have a quorum, and you all have been troopers and have been here at every single meeting and have worked with us to schedule these meetings where it's amenable to all four of you. We have requested additional board members to give you all some help, and hopefully that'll be forthcoming in the near future. But other than that, these dates you all have helped us peg down so that we can count on the four of you. So once again, thank you very much for that, and that'll be the proposed item for the meeting to vote upon that. The next item is going to be the general counsel comments, reports, presentations, and should he have one, David will provide a brief update, and then we'll have closing and adjournment. And once again, I thank you for today's participation in the workshop. September 14th is our quarterly meeting. I look forward to seeing you there. It'll be posted timely as required by law. Invite all of the board members, please reach out to me directly with any questions, anything at all you need clarity on, or anything else, please reach out to me so that I can assist you. And I turn it back over to Chair Wattrett for closing comments and adjournment.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Alves. And as always, you and your staff are prepared to all the documentation, everything well, and it's clear and understanding, and appreciate being here to answer questions and clarify on some of the comments that we've all had. So it makes the process easy for us to go through. So before we adjourn, I'd like to offer up board members of any additional comments before we close. Linda?
Thank you again, everybody, for all your hard work. And next time, in solidarity with me, I'd like you all to put your backgrounds backwards so that we're all on the same page. So I would appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, it might look backwards on your screen, but it's forwards on ours.
It's forward now, yeah.
Okay, that thing's been driving me crazy for the past hour and a half. So I'm glad that everybody sees it the right way. I was going to apologize, but okay, good.
Now, your picture's upside down though, so I'm not sure.
Fine. I look better that way, so especially this early. All right. No, thank you all for all this hard work. I appreciate it. All of us do.
Thank you. Rob, any additional comments?
No, I apologize. I don't have, I looked for my background. I couldn't find it, so I have to make sure my IT gets it on there. But no, as always, it's great, these agendas in the backup and even in between. I had a question about what we're doing about marketing, like, with all these, the COVID and the masks. And I know that there's going to be an increased demand for the virtual schools. And Dr. Elgay's got me right on the phone with the marketing, and he listened to what they're doing. And really, they're already way ahead of the game of what I was thinking. So it's a pleasure to see an organization that's really on top of, not only the education for the kids, but, looking forward and, using the business sense to grow the organization. So pleasure to be part of it.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Thank you. Ed, any comments?
No, as usual, Dr. Algiz and his team have done a great job of preparing us. Appreciate it. I wanted to mention Mike Miller and I have spoken with regard to, I think, what would be aggressive legislative plan to move the ball. Appreciate the work that he's doing on that. And as always, it's good to get the bonus plan for David in place, the pay for performance plan. I think that's it's well worth it. That'll motivate him. Not that he's not motivated, but appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Enjoy working with you too.
We still got to
Thank
vote
you
on
all. Excellent. And I really concur with everything that's been said. Things seem to be running smoothly for us, and we're getting a lot of things accomplished, and it's for the betterment of the students. And it's good to hear that we've retained a lot of students that came to Florida Virtual because of COVID, but realized that the benefits of it are there. It's a quality education that they're getting, and they're receiving fulfillment out of going through it. So it's a credit to everyone here for making that happen too, and for the students. So thank you to everyone. Dr. Algiz, do you have any closing remarks?
No, once again, I thank you all for your service and your patience and your ability to go with the flow. Thank you all.
Okay. And our general counsel, David, any comments?
Well, same thing. It's an excellent board to work with, and we're doing our best. I know that this whole team, the leadership team, it's doing its best to add good members like you to kind of ease up all of the pressure that you've got to make these meetings and make them happen. And you see how vital they are. I just had to weigh in with and I love the addition, I want you to know, of Ms. Judith Marti, who is just tremendous as an addition to this squad. I know everyone shares that outlook. It's just this policy work, you all know, but I have to underscore, this really takes a team, and I've got to hand it to Dr. A's leadership and the executive directors, what we call those that we call SMEs, subject matter experts, and the Office of General Counsel in putting all of these things together in a coherent and streamlined way with as little overhead pressure and interruption of the operations of this organization, which is just, we're going bell to bell, as you all know. So it's a tremendous thing to get this amount of work done structurally while flying the plane, if you will. And I had to throw this, if not for purposes of levity, with when Ms. Marti noted with respect to the budget increased costs due to legal compliance, which is correct. But I'm going to tell you this, the cost of not complying probably dwarfs it. Just keep that in mind. Office of General Counsel is doing its best to onboard absolutely everything that it can, outsource very little, except where it is necessary. And I think we're achieving that. And again, I want to thank this whole team for making that happen, because when I came on board, there was no Office of General Counsel and not even a budget related to legal services. So we've come a long way, and I just want to thank everyone for it.
Thank you. Now, with that, we do have to formally close our meeting. So do you have a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So the motion carries. So we're formally concludes the agenda review workshop meeting. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all again on September 14th.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Take care.